lumière du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
We want to turn now on the facts that undercut what we saw and heard in the Rose Garden today. Now, the larger context here is that, as I've mentioned, today and yesterday, the president has seized the time that is allotted for federal updates about the coronavirus to keep you and your family safe, to tell you what you need to know, to provide the information that your taxpayer dollars fund. He has very clearly hijacked that time to wage what can only be considered as scores to settle, attacking the WHO today and attacking the press, as Peter was just mentioning, and defending the president's record yesterday.
They said, I acted late on closing down the country. Some people wish we never closed it down. Now, if we didn't, we would have lost hundreds of thousands of people. You know, interestingly, so I'm against it. We did the right thing. Everything we did was right.
Let me be clear, speaking to you as a journalist, those are empirical claims, meaning we can gather the evidence to show whether they are true or false. Now, experts and members of Donald Trump's own administration say those were false claims for him to assert that he acted early, decisively, or correctly in every case involving the virus. Here are the receipts. That thorough New York Times investigation finding the president was slow to absorb the scale of the risk and the warnings from senior officials. Now, today, his new claims that the WHO was wrong, late, and China-centric, those are misleading, and they are contradicted by Donald Trump himself. Take a look at this. In January, Trump saying the U.S. greatly appreciated China's efforts and transparency. Referring to the virus, he said it will all work out well, and I want to thank President Xi. In February, he added that President Xi was powerfully focused on leading the counterattack on the coronavirus. And Donald Trump, you need to know this today, as he attacks the WHO, he went out of his way to dismiss criticism of China's handling of the virus at the time.
Are you concerned that China is covering up the full extent of coronavirus?
No, China's working very hard. Late last night, I had a very good talk with President Xi, and we talked mostly about the coronavirus. They're working really hard, and I think they're doing a very professional job. They're in touch with our world organization, CDC also. We're working together, but World Health is working with them.
World Health is working with them. That's what the president sounded like in real time. Today, he's criticizing the World Health Organization for saying at that time that he was praising them and China, they weren't doing the right things. Now, that's Donald Trump's own record. We also know what life was like just a few months ago. Everyone remembers it. Trump was downplaying the threat, and the presidential primaries were in full bloom. People were living normal life in America. But now we know behind the scenes, the State Department's epidemiologists put warnings in writing that the coronavirus was likely spreading across the globe and thus headed to the U.S. Trump and his top officials also on notice because experts inside his Security Council were urging officials to think up plans for quarantining cities the size of Chicago. So as Trump attacks the WHO right now, what was that health organization actually saying and doing in January? Let me show you. The WHO was publicly urging countries to prepare for containment, including active surveillance, early detection, isolation, case management, and contact tracing. Why am I showing you this right now? Because you need to know the facts. That while Donald Trump defunds the WHO and tries to blame them to distract from his own response, he is actually only calling attention to the fact that the WHO was ahead of President Trump. In fact, just days after getting the coronavirus briefing, he said this in January.
Have you been briefed by the CDC?
I have.
Are there words about a pandemic at this point?
No, we're not at all.
No, not at all worried. Now, the political ploy here is easy to see. You have Donald Trump projecting his own weakness, what he did 4 months in public in front of you, downplaying the pandemic. He's projecting that on others, trying to claim maybe it was a WHO doing what he did. Again, to the facts, by late February, Donald Trump's task force, which included Dr. Fauci, concluded they needed to move towards the aggressive social distancing that we're now living through. And then there was their own doctor issuing this blunt warning on February 25th.
We expect we will see community spread in this country. It's not so much a question of if this will happen anymore, but rather more a question of exactly when this will happen and how many people in this country will have severe illness.
That was in February. That was in public. We all know what happened. We're all living with the consequences. This is as serious as it gets. So today, when the president walks out and says he's taken the money from the WHO, that it's their fault, that they were China-centric, that they didn't do the right thing, you need to know what President Trump was actually saying and doing at the time. Because I just showed you the WHO was actually putting out the warnings, calling for containment, telling countries to get ready. And here in late February is exactly what President Trump was saying.
President, the CDC said yesterday that they believe it's inevitable that the virus will spread in the United States, and it's not a question of if, but when. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I don't think it's inevitable. It probably will. It possibly will. It could be at a very small level or it could be at a larger level. It's going to be very well under control. Now, it may get bigger. It may get a little bigger. It may not get bigger at all. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. You've probably heard that phrase. It's one the president uses a lot. Unfortunately, we've all seen and lived through what happens. We're not going over this history right now to make any kind of point against this or that government official. We're going over this history because the president, now the second day in a row, has hijacked the time to update everyone on the virus, to tell you the public information and security and public health information you need. He's hijacked that time to defend his record and attack other people. In this case, inaccurately attacking the WHO, which may not be a perfect organization above reproach, but happened to be ahead of him. And why can I say that as a fact? Because it was 3 more weeks after what I just showed you until the president did issue the first social distancing guidelines at a federal level on March 16th.
It is Wednesday, the 15th of April of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Well, we are still being ravaged by the invisible enemy. Invisible enemy, boy. You know, he should have read Slaughterhouse-Five or even Cat's Cradle. Cat's Cradle probably would be more apropos. If you're not aware, there was a scene in there, actually a recurring theme throughout the whole book because of Ice 9. Remember that one? Oh, you don't? You got to read Vonnegut. Well, anyway, Vonnegut brought up the concept of billions and billions and billions of microscopic Chinese invading America and taking over our way of life. And I got to tell you, this coronavirus has eroded the very fabric of what it is to be America. And evidence of that is that for the month of March, this last March was the first March since 2002 that there were no school shootings. This virus is destroying the very fabric of what it means to be an American. Wow. I mean, I came to understand that what it meant to be an American was being strong enough to ignore a school shooting every single day in America. It takes a certain kind of strength to be able to do that. And you never really know what you're missing or what you've missed until it's gone. And now there are no more school shootings because there are no schools opened. Which makes me wonder, will there be some mass homeschool shootings now? I would expect that might be the case, knowing some of these administrators in these homeschools. I know a lot of kids just want to get away. Okay, well, we're in perilous times, and not made any less perilous by the supposed leaders of these great United States. I hope that Trump continues with these pressers. It's hard to watch, I know. He puts out all this propaganda and lies. But I got to tell you, the vast majority of people, the terrible sleeping giant that Yamamoto alluded to way back in the day, that slumbering, terrible sleeping giant has stirred and awakened, and they don't like what they see. Wisconsin might be a bellwether about that. Now, of course, because of the Wisconsin blue wave, we'll just call it a blue wave, Kentucky just overrode Beshear's veto of Kentuckian Republican bill to make it harder for people to vote. And what is making it harder? People have to brave the pandemic, go to a government office that is closed and get the proper voter ID so that they can vote. So Beshear, the Democratic governor, vetoed that, and the Republican legislator overrode the veto, did some elbow high fives. You know, would you really call it a high five when it's the elbow? Because the five's supposed to be denote the fingers. So, I don't know, maybe it's a high point. Maybe it's a high point. We'll call it the elbow bump a high point. Anyway, Republican legislators were high-pointing their great victory over making it hard for Kentuckians to vote so that Mitch McConnell, who was tanking in the polls, has a bit easier run of it. He is in danger, and the only way to assure a victory for him is if nobody votes. So the great blue wave in Wisconsin might be blunted somehow by this effort in Kentucky. Now, I will say that Derek Holder's organization got into Wisconsin, massive phone calling, massive get-out-the-vote effort, and that's what's going to happen in Kentucky, in spite of the fact that the Republicans, for some reason, hate America, and most importantly, they hate Americans. They do, and they always have. It's no secret. Yeah, David alluded to this young guy who said that, letting people die is the lesser of two evils if it keeps the economy running. Yeah, wow. I guess the wheels of progress are greased by the actual blood and flesh of human beings. Huh. Who knew? Well, some of us already did. Anyway, we do live in perilous times. It's something we can tell our grandkids. In fact, I'm telling my grandkids now. They're almost adults, every single one of them. Jeez. I'm going to tell my great-grandkids, heaven forbid that they should violate social distancing to give me grandkids right now. Keep it back, kids. Give me a few more years, okay? Please. I got to tell you, confidentially, I wasn't quite ready when at the age of 50 to be a grandparent. I told my son that. Did he listen? No. But anyway, I've got 3 beautiful grandkids. They're great. They honor the memory of their father, and I couldn't ask for anything more. Except they do. They give lots more. They're heartfelt, liberal, which is very important, and free thinkers at the same time. I guess one could say liberal and free thinker might go hand in hand, but that's not necessarily so. Yeah. I think right now, as just an aside, there is a call by One America to pretty much string Bernie up for not being Bernie. Yeah. Bernie hated Bernie the whole time, apparently. Otherwise, why would he endorse Biden? Why? These are the times we live in. Oh, and also the so-called Bernie faction, not Bernie, I would call them Bernie bros, Bernie brats. You use your own nomenclature upon it. You know what we mean. They are out in droves again, relitigating 2016 and invoking how terrible Obama was. Everything that Trump has done, Obama did worse. And because of that, they're trying to we are trying to ram Joe Biden down their throats. Huh. Wow. I remember a tete-a-tete here in my little burg of Rogue River with some Trump brats who bowed down and got very, very mad if you didn't bow down also to dear leader. And every single one of them, now I want to say every single one, it's only a handful that I actually was able to speak to here in town. Because I went there and faced them in real life. You know? Apparently they didn't realize who I was because I've been in their stores buying their stuff. So when I presented myself and they know who I am, oh yeah, they were a bit contrite, conciliatory. They weren't bullies in my face. Really. But they did make clear to me that they were Bernie voters. And so they had to vote for Trump. Okay. I, at the time, and I still do at this time, think they were never Bernie voters. That there was some aspect of Bernie that they liked. I think it might have been the hue of flesh. And truly, they're just bigots and at heart racists. Mm-hmm. Why else would they move from like Fresno and San Jose to get away from that? Graffiti on the walls so they can move to Rogue River, the last bastion of white utopia in Oregon. Since Oregon was chartered to be a white-only state. Yeah, look it up. Great history. But it's not so anymore. But you do have a very virulent, potent, and toxic element in Oregon that pretty much tends to live in the rural areas. Fancy that. Okay, well, we better get into what we've curated today. So what's on the show here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasies? Bistro Cafe. Yeah, we're in the Bistro Cafe first. Well, at the top, that was Ari breaking down Trump's dangerous attacks on the World Health Organization. Really apply more to him. Everything that he accused who of, he did. Oh, and now your stimulus checks are going to be held up because he has to get his name on the memo line. He wanted it over on the other side. He wanted to be the lone sole signatory to those checks, but by law he can't because he's not lawfully allowed to be able to sign those checks. But he can get put in the memo line. So your checks, unless you have direct deposit, you can bypass that. Get a hold of the IRS and give them direct deposit. I don't know. In a certain way, I don't know if I want to do that. That's sort of like calling up or getting a hold of some big tech company and saying, hey, go ahead and dig all the way through my computer. I just so I can get a sale item. All right. But regardless, if you need your stimulus check and you can't wait for this delay, get a hold of the IRS. Good luck with that, too. And give them direct deposit information. And then you don't have to wait for Trump's signature to, be printed on all these checks. They had to take all those checks back and reprint them because of the vanity of this Russian mobster. Okay, well, on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe, a for-profit icebox baby gulag is forcing asylum seekers to give up their rights if they want protections from the pandemic. You want a mask? Give me your kid. Huh, interesting. Oh, Liberty University is sued for not refunding student and campus fees while the school is offering online-only classes, and they had actually promised they would refund it. Now they're not. And a district court threw out Trump's rollback of school nutrition rules. He hated Michelle Obama because she's black. Obviously, eating like a black person does, like Michelle, is wrong for all of us good white people. So he had to roll all those nutrition rules back. so that you could have like a Snickers bar to tide you over. And, district court said, nope, can't do that. Of course, the schools aren't open, but when they do, this rule will be in place. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where a Chilean court upheld the conviction of former Pinochet aide Christian Labbe for torture in 1973. And Iraq suspended Reuters for 3 months for reporting the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the country was higher than officially released. Oh, that seems to be catching too. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. The bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is our chat room link right there by the social media scroll. Fancy that. The chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, and thank you, Kelly, for doing so. Now, Kelly is sheltering in place in Manhattan, so Kelly, take care. And I hope people send good vibes out to her and all the rest of us. We need to send out vibes to all of us now, okay? Virtual hugs, virtual. To the leftish of the chat room link that is at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will notice the Patreon link, and please do become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. Even in these perilous times, we still pay our bills. We have to. And your generosity over these 9 years has allowed us to broadcast 24/7, 365 Resistance Radio, as the founders originally intended, indeed. So thank you for your generosity. If you would like to follow the station on Twitter, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that, and he's sheltering in place, too, at a location that we won't name, okay? Until he tells me that I can, but then I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't anyway. Just give him a little bit of privacy. It's not where his domicile normally is because of, well, a pandemic. Indeed. Anyway, thank you, Tom, for doing all that you do. We would be in dire trouble if Tom wasn't able to fix problems for us that are, kind of beyond, my capabilities. Anyway, if you would like to follow me on Twitter, you can do so at Justice Putnam, and I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime, and then scramble to get that linked up on social media, including Facebook now. I haven't been suspended so far. I did go to Facebook, but I didn't try to post anything. I have to see if someone decided to turn in a comment that was against Trump, say like around December, which they keep doing. And also I got suspended for, I get repeatedly in replies when someone would tout Trump as being the master of the universe. I would post Trump's comment about I don't take any responsibility at all. I don't take any responsibility. And according to Facebook, when that statement was reported, and maybe it was because of multiples, I don't know. Because the people that were talking to me on the Trump side were calling me, a Bernie C sucker. Yeah. I'm being BF'd by Bernie. Just all sorts of weird stuff, any weird, racist, homophobic, misogynist BS. And I would just reply with, I don't take responsibility. Trump saying, I don't take responsibility. That was reported, and that was labeled harassment by Facebook. Okay. Quoting what the president of the free world, the leader of the free world says, who happens to be a Russian mobster. Now, let's be clear about that, because that's exactly what he is. A New York Russian mobster. You disrespect him if you go against what that person says, well, yeah, you get suspended. You're shut up. You are censored. So anyway, for now, I'm pretty sure I get to post on Facebook. And we'll see how long that lasts, because we have an election coming up during a pandemic. And Trump's trying to get rid of the post office. No mail-in ballots for you, little person. Alrighty. If you would like to follow the show on Twitter, do so at Cookbook West, and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., 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 etc. All right, let's dive into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. What day is it? It's Wednesday, so that means it's Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Comes out of the Associated Press by way of the American Independent. Now, detainees in at least 4 states say they have been denied masks, even as the White House has urged face coverings in public. Well, there's the key right there. They're not in public. They're in a private, for-profit icebox baby gulag. Okay, let's be clear. Elsie was on the phone in an immigration detention center when guards showed up with face masks and forms to sign. The asylum seeker from El Salvador. Now remember, these are people who are seeking asylum. We're not talking about illegal immigrants coming here to take our jobs. All right, whatever that means. As far as I can tell, the only people harvesting our produce right now to keep us fed. Don't let Trump know. We'll all starve then, won't we? Anyway, she is an asylum seeker. Not a criminal. Well, according to Stephen Santa Monica Goebbels Miller, anybody brown and black, by definition, is a criminal. And they're not allowed here in the great white United States. Well, the asylum seeker from El Salvador and others had resorted to tearing their T-shirts into face coverings after a woman in their unit tested positive for COVID-19. But the guards would not give out the masks until the detainee signed the forms, which said that they could not hold the private prison company running the detention center in San Diego liable if they got the coronavirus. AP always puts in this indefinite article, the, for coronavirus. It is coronavirus. I keep telling you that. According to the Netroots Radio Style Manual, which is, I should mention, based upon Strunk and White and the Chicago Tribune Style Manual. Yeah, we don't put that indefinite article, though. Please. It's coronavirus. You can call it the COVID-19. You could call it the coronavirus pandemic. Just saying. Damn you, AP. Well, according to Elsie and 2 other detainees, including one who read the form to the AP over the phone, when they refused this last Friday, the guards took away the masks, and Elsie didn't want to give her last name for fear that she would be, withheld for fear of retribution. That's what they do. While U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has started to lower the number of detainees to reduce the risk of people getting sick, those held in immigration jails, icebox baby gulags, they're not immigration jails. And their advocates say there's not enough protective gear, cleaning supplies, or space to allow for social distancing. They fear the number of coronavirus cases will sharply rise in the coming weeks, as it has in jails and prisons nationwide. Private prison company CoreCivic, which operates Otay Mesa, denied that masks were withheld unless detainees signed waivers. Spokeswoman Amanda Gilchrist said that detainees were given an acknowledgement form that a mask alone could not protect them from the virus. Is that really what you did? It was not the intent of the previous form to require detainees to relinquish all rights related to COVID-19, Gilchrist said, adding that the company has stopped using it because they got caught. Detainees are only required to initial documentation evidencing that they were issued a mask. Really? Sign here or you don't get a mask. While jails and prisons are releasing some non-violent offenders, ICE says it has freed 160 people so far and instructed field offices to review the cases of people over 60 or those with certain medical conditions. The number of people in ICE detention now totals 33,800, down from about 3,700 a few weeks ago. Though the Trump administration has effectively shut down new asylum claims during the pandemic, it is still holding people who were apprehended months or years earlier for civil violations, including over 5,800 people who passed government asylum screenings. Santa Monica Goebbels needs to get his pound of flesh. You know that. Opponents argue that ICE could release thousands of people who are not accused of a crime, have cleared asylum screenings, or have won their cases but are detained while the government appeals. Well, these are black and brown people. Releasing them into the general population? Oh, wow. Santa Monica Goebbels advised not to do that. Next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays is by Denise Lavoie out of the Associated Press. Liberty University has profited from the COVID-19 pandemic by refusing to refund thousands of dollars in room and board and other fees owed to students. After the school moved classes online last month, a federal lawsuit filed yesterday, Tuesday, alleges. The lawsuit, filed in U.S. District Court in Lynchburg, accuses the university, one of the nation's largest and most prominent evangelical institutions, of purporting to remain open so it could refuse to return fees paid by students and their parents for the remainder of the spring semester. The lawsuit also accuses Liberty and its president, Jerry Falwell Jr., of putting students at risk by telling the students they were welcome to return to campus following spring break in March. Come on in, kids. You been to Florida? Come on in. Repent your sins, and we'll all go to the Commons and have some Jell-O. The suit cites comments and tweets made by Falwell in which he downplayed the seriousness of the pandemic and implied that the government shutdowns were an attempt to hurt Donald Trump politically. Oh, really? I guess the virus is a lot smarter and intelligent than even Trump knows. The lawsuit said that despite efforts to downplay the pandemic, the university stopped providing services and activities by moving classes online, closing its campus to visitors, prohibiting gatherings of 10 or more people, and closing indoor recreation and fitness centers. In other words, the university's statement that it is open is an illusion being put forth to try to keep money that should be returned to students and their families, the lawsuit said. Well, wait a second. This whole thing being an illusion being put forth to try to keep money? Isn't that what religion's all about to begin with? In a statement, Liberty said it has, quote, tirelessly attempted to balance the needs of students, employees, and the community as it has navigated through the unprecedented health challenges presented by COVID-19. Each of Liberty's changes in operations and modes of delivery has been required by governmental officials, a fact the complaint omits. That fact legally excuses Liberty's adjustments and leaves the plaintiffs without a legal case, the statement said. Now, the lawsuit focuses on the week of March 16th, when students were on spring break. While many colleges around the country were announcing campus closures, Liberty initially planned to continue on-campus instruction. But after Virginia Governor Ralph Northam restricted gatherings of more than 100, Liberty announced it would transition most classes to online beginning on March 23rd. Liberty officials told residential students in a March 20 email that they were welcome to either stay in place or return to campus, where it said various safety measures had been put in place to avoid concentrations of people. That message contradicted actions by many other colleges and universities urging students to stay home. Also of the Associated Press, brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. After making a brief comeback on school lunch menus, white bread and other refined grains may be vanishing again when schools reopen after a federal court threw out the Trump administration's rollback of school nutrition standards. The U.S. District Court in Maryland said the administration did not give adequate public notice of the change, which had gone into effect for this past school year. The ruling was in response to a lawsuit brought by the Center for Science in the Public Interest and Healthy School Food Maryland. The U.S. Department of Agriculture said it does not comment on ongoing litigation, and it's unknown how the agency will proceed. Of course, we know the agency oversees the National School Lunch and Breakfast Programs, which serves millions of free and reduced price meals daily. And I guess that's a way of propping up farmers, and for good reason. For now, closed schools that have continued distributing meals during the coronavirus pandemic are operating under different standards and have been able to request flexibility on nutrition standards. Here, have a ho-ho! None of this applies under the current situation. This is for when we resume post-pandemic school operations, said Laura McCleary, Senior Policy Director for the Center for Science in the Public Interest. But Diane Pratt-Heavner of the School Nutrition Association, which represents cafeteria operators and food suppliers, said tighter budgets and strained supply chains could make it even harder to meet strict nutrition standards once schools resume because ho-hos and ding-dongs will last until the next millennials are born a millennia from now. In the latest twist in the years-long clash over nutrition standards, championed by former First Lady Michelle Obama, the 2012 rules required schools to transition over time entirely to whole grain-rich options and gradually reduce sodium levels. But school lunch operators opposed the standards, saying new recipes were resulting in mushy pastas and cardboard-like pizzas and that students were throwing away more food. Well, don't serve the stupid pizzas. All right? You could make a nice sandwich. Grilled even. If you're going to make a pizza, make a hot sandwich. To allow cafeteria operators time to adapt, the USDA has been postponing compliance dates and granting waivers to temporarily let schools continue serving select refined grains. Then in late 2018, the agency issued a rule saying it would give schools greater flexibility by reverting back to a previous standard that at least half of grains served to students be whole grain rich, and it also eliminated the final sodium target. Well, we better get to our break. Go to the link and read the rest of the article. In fact, all of the articles. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1916. That was the day that the American Federation of Teachers was founded at a meeting at the City Club in downtown Chicago. 3 Chicago teachers groups helped to organize the meeting. They were convinced that in order to improve working conditions for teachers, they would need to formally join the labor movement. In 1902, the Chicago Teachers Federation had become the first teachers organization in the nation to join their Central Labor Council. Now they believed it was time to form a national organization. The meeting was also attended by representatives from nearby Gary, Indiana, as well as New York City, Washington, D.C., and Scranton, Pennsylvania. Just a few weeks after the meeting, the American Federation of Teachers had received its charter from the American Federation of Labor. The new union grew quickly. Within 4 months, 174 locals approached membership of 10,000 educators. But then came a backlash from school boards who did not want to negotiate with the new unions. Board members publicly called into question whether it was appropriate for teachers to unionize. The American Federation of Teachers numbers fell to below 5,000. But the union was not swayed from their cause. They renewed their efforts and again began to grow. In the 1950s, some teachers became the targets of anti-communist hysteria. This highlighted the importance of having a union to protect academic freedom. The 1960s was a time of increased teacher actions and strikes. The American Federation of Teachers more than tripled its membership from 60,000 to 200,000 by the end of the decade. Today, the American Federation of Teachers represents more than 1 million members across the nation. While under increasing attacks, teachers are an important force in today's national labor movement.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
The number of global coronavirus cases is rapidly approaching 2 million. The number of cases in Russia has surged, and Singapore is seeing a second wave. Germany recorded its highest number of deaths in a single day, even though new infections in the country are down significantly. The U.S. on Tuesday also marked its deadliest day, and all 50 states now have at least one confirmed death due to COVID-19. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Federal Emergency Management Agency have reportedly drafted a plan to reopen the country in phases. despite some politicians, including Donald Trump, chomping at the bit to get the economy going again. Dr. Anthony Fauci says the country is not there yet, and that Trump's aim to start reopening parts of the economy on May 1st is, quote, a bit overly optimistic.
I said a rolling reentry. It is not going to be a light switch that we say, okay, it is now June, July, or whatever, click, the light switch goes back on. It's going to be depending where you are in the country, the nature of the outbreak that you've already experienced, and the threat of an outbreak that you may not have experienced. So it's going to having to look at the situation in different parts of the country. Obviously, New York, who went and is going through a terrible ordeal, is going to be very different from Arkansas, and you'll hear from the governor shortly, and very different maybe from some places on the West Coast, like Washington State, which have been successfully able to prevent that big spike. I think it's going to have to be something that is not one size fits all.
A new study from the Harvard School of Public Health says Americans may need to endure periods of social distancing until 2022 if a vaccine isn't found. At his daily 2-hour infomercial Tuesday, still inexplicably carried live by cable news channels, Donald Trump announced that he was cutting off payments to the World Health Organization pending a review.
Today I'm instructing my administration to halt funding of the World Health Organization while a review is conducted to assess the World Health Organization's role in severely mismanaging and covering up the spread of the coronavirus. Everybody knows what's going on there.
Yes, Donald Trump accused the UN agency of bungling the response to the coronavirus pandemic. The United States contributes more than $400 million a year to the WHO's $4.8 billion budget. Trump has accused the organization of being complicit in a cover-up of the early days of the coronavirus outbreak in late 2019 and early 2020. Trump's allegations against the WHO came as he faces increasing criticism for downplaying the coronavirus threat in the U.S. through February. CNN's John King is one of many pundits who called out his blatant hypocrisy. Not that that's anything new.
I am not going to defend the World Health Organization. CNN called the coronavirus a pandemic before the World Health Organization. Yeah. It was flat-footed. It did overly trust China. The president is right about that. However, look at the president's own words. He said we were working with the World Health Organization back in the early days and things were fantastic. He repeatedly defended China. On the day in late January, he said this would never be a pandemic. He said that was because President Xi was on top of it and he trusted the president of China. The president, and then he wouldn't answer a direct question when asked about that by CNN's Caitlin Collins and another reporter in their briefing room. He tried to hide from it, saying, well, he was being respectful of China. He said the World Health Organization is responsible for deaths around the world because it cozied up to China. He did the same thing.
A new report from the Associated Press says that top Chinese officials secretly determined they were likely facing a pandemic from a new coronavirus in mid-January, ordering preparations even as they downplayed the idea in public. During that time, the city of Wuhan, the epicenter of the disease, hosted a mass banquet for tens of thousands of people, and millions began traveling for Lunar New Year celebrations. Internal documents obtained by the Associated Press show that because warnings were muffled inside China, it took a confirmed case in Thailand to jolt Beijing into recognizing the possible pandemic. Well, after making this stunning claim on Monday,
when somebody's the president of the United States, the authority is total. And that's the way it's got to be. The authority is total.
Donald Trump on Tuesday backed a little bit away from his claim that he's total authority over when states relax social distancing orders and reopen their economies. Trump said he wouldn't oppose some states reopening before he lifts federal restrictions on movement that are due to expire at the end of April. So have you gotten your $1,200 stimulus payment yet? Well, if you're waiting for an actual check from the IRS, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer thanks to Donald Trump. Really. The payments approved for tens of millions of Americans last month as part of the $2 trillion coronavirus stimulus bill will be delayed for several more days so the Treasury Department can add Donald Trump's signature in the printed checks memo line. This is not a report from The Onion. This is real. And according to a new report in the Washington Post, which cited several IRS sources who said the inclusion of the president's name, which is legally unnecessary because a Treasury civil servant is the actual fiscal signing authority, has complicated the printing. You think? Former President Barack Obama on Tuesday formally endorsed presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden for president. Obama said Biden, who served as his VP during his 2 terms in the White House, quote, has all the qualities we need in a president right now. Obama vowed to hit the campaign trail to encourage Americans to support Biden in his challenge against Trump in November. And the allegations continue to pile up against Senator Richard Burr, the Republican chairman of the very powerful Senate Intelligence Committee. ProPublica reported on Tuesday that Burr sold his Washington, D.C. home in 2017 to a group led by a donor and a powerful lobbyist for more than the market price. The group that bought the Capitol Hill townhouse was led by John Green, a lobbyist who had donated to Burr's political campaigns and represented clients with business before Burr's committees. The property sold for $900,000, while tax assessors and the real estate website Redfin valued it at around $800,000. A Burr spokesman said the price was, quote, directly in line with comparable properties recently sold in the area. Burr already faced scrutiny for dumping stock holdings just before the market crashed as the coronavirus pandemic hit the U.S. and after he had received an intelligence briefing on the potential impact of the outbreak. And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com. Just click on that donate button.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently it's actually gone up a little bit here. It is now 47 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high in the low 70s. Overnight lows will continue in the low 40s. And tomorrow we should have a daytime high in the mid to upper 70s. We'll see about that. Sunshine and clouds mixed today. Winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and then shifting out of the northeast tonight at 5 to 10 miles per hour, making it mainly clear. And then sunny skies tomorrow, as I mentioned, with winds out of the east-northeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Jackson County here in southern Oregon has 47 confirmed cases of coronavirus, holding steady from the reportage yesterday. Locally, grass pollen is low. The air quality index for the region is good at 27 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is moderate at 5. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.28 inches. Can't rise very much more. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is at 72%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 64 and sunny with coronavirus. Paris is 67 and sunny, and they have coronavirus, but everybody wants to go out and smell the flowers. Rome is 65 and sunny, and they're having a recurrence of cases who have been cured of coronavirus now getting it again. Kyiv is 47 and fair, and they're not really reporting the amount of dead accurately because of coronavirus. Kabul is 60 degrees and fair, and the same can be said about the Taliban and coronavirus. Hong Kong is 67 and partly cloudy, and they're so free they say we don't need social distancing. We're Hong Kong, and we don't need no stinking coronavirus. And they're going to get it anyway. Tokyo is 56 and partly cloudy, and looks like they're going to have a whole country lockdown because of coronavirus. Sydney, Australia is 66 and partly cloudy, and the coronavirus continues. San Francisco, California is 52 and sunny, and Newsom is planning a staged rollout of opening up the state from the effects of coronavirus. And New York is 45 degrees and sunny, and they're on a plateau, but not decreasing the amount of infections from coronavirus. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Cabrero of Reuters brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A Chilean court ratified a 3-year prison sentence handed to Christian Labbe, a former aide to dictator Augusto Pinochet, some people say Pinochet, for torturing a detainee in 1973. Labbe, 71, a far-right politician who served as mayor of Santiago suburb until 2012, was convicted in September of torturing 26-year-old student Harry Cohen in a town in southern Chile in the early days of military rule. The Temuco Court of Appeals in the south of the country rejected an appeal by Labbe against his conviction and ordered the state to pay compensation of about $35,000 to the victim. Labbe was among a number of former members of Pinochet's notorious DINA secret police who were prosecuted under a drive during the presidency of Michelle Bachelet to bring more of those accused of human rights abuses during the dictatorship to trial. During Pinochet's 73 to 1990 rule, some 3,000 people died or were disappeared, while 28,000 were victims of torture, including Bachelet.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Iraq has suspended the license of the Reuters news agency after it published a story saying the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the country was higher than officially reported. Iraq's media regulator said it was revoking Reuters' license for 3 months and fining it $21,000 U.S. for what it said was the agency's violation of the rules of media broadcasting. In the letter to Reuters, the Communications and Media Commission said it had taken the action because this matter is taking place during the current circumstances which have serious repercussions on societal health and safety. Reuters said it regretted the Iraqi authorities' decision and that it stood by the story, which it said was based on multiple well-placed medical and political sources and fully represented the position of the Iraqi Health Ministry. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. You do know the Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we'll meet up tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Coër. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.